Hello, and thanks for joining me. Um, this was not really a planned video, but it is something I feel is important enough to talk about. Um, it's depressing reading, but I'm going to read out this news report and share my reflections on it and what I feel needs to be done. So this is the headline from Yahoo News. Machete-wielding gang hack teenage cyclist to death in London. A teenage cyclist has been brutally hacked to death by a gang of mask-youths on a housing estate in London. The 17-year-old was found sprawled on the bonnet of a car in Ingrave Street, Battersea, by police in the early hours of Sunday morning. Scotland Yard say the boy was taken to hospital but was pronounced dead at half 2 a.m. 2:50 a.m. The as yet unidentified victim was reportedly chased by a gang wearing balaclavas and carrying large knives who stabbed him multiple times. Residents on the estate said they were woken at 1:25 a.m. on Sunday by the boy's screams of "Help me, I'm dying." One 45-year-old neighbour said the gang arrived on the estate in a car and had been hassling passers-by earlier in the evening. They told the Evening Standard there were about six of them. They jumped out of the car and started chasing him immediately. He was on his bike, but they caught up with him and stabbed him. Someone shouted police are coming, which stopped the others from finishing him off, and they got in the car and sped off. A mother laying flowers at the scene added, "I didn't know the poor boy, but my daughter saw the guys who did it minutes before. They were covering their faces and quizzing anyone who came out of the block." Okay, so my response to this is twofold. I feel sadness and I feel anger. I feel sadness that this is yet another young life taken in the capital from knife crime in the most vicious way. I feel sadness for his family. Can't imagine. I can't imagine the pain that they're going through right now. But I also feel anger. I feel anger that there are people out there who have such a depraved lack of humanity that they could do this to somebody else, that they could be so viciously inhumane. I've spoken at length about human rights abuses in other countries. Now, this isn't human rights abuse from the point of view of an oppressive government or an oppressive law or anything like that, but I would contend that what criminals do is a form of human rights abuse, and it goes beyond that because the lad's dead. Now, obviously, all the details haven't emerged. It may be gang related insofar as the victim may have also been in the gang. I don't know. I'm not going to slander the victim without knowing that fact. Um, but what always troubles me about these cases, it's very, very rarely an individual versus an individual, which would be bad enough. It's always this pack mentality, this gang mentality. I find utterly disgusting. It's depraved. And, I could rant about how much I hate them and how much I feel disgust at this gang culture. But to be honest, I'd just be going in circles. So what I want to do is make some observations as to what I think can be done. Firstly, in parts of London, there have been knife arches installed. I forget which boroughs, but as I recall from news reports, that did have a positive change in those boroughs. That is to say that before you can get into an estate, you need to go through these arches. And if you have a knife, as I understand it, then it's some sort of security system. Now, even with horrible crimes like this, we have to remember London is still a lot safer than a lot of big cities around the world. It's safer than Moscow. It's safer than Chicago, a lot safer than Chicago. It is safer than most American cities that are significantly smaller. But one crime like this is one too many. And in recent months, there has been actually a spike in violent crime in the capital. So, this is a constant battle in trends. There are periods where I remember in the late 2000s, sort of 2008, 2009, it was a really bad time for knife crime in the capital. Then it sort of went down a little bit, but now it seems to be going up again. And it just disgusts me. I think that we have to take a very, very hard line approach. Anyone caught with a knife should be treated as a dangerous criminal, regardless of what their excuse is. All of them come out with the same excuse, they have it for protection. But the thing is, these people will stab someone for disrespecting them. And it is this sick, perverse gang culture that promotes that. And people say you can't blame music and that sort of thing. Well, I agree, you can't solely blame those things. Obviously, first and foremost are social factors. But I don't agree that when you have rap artists glorifying crime, you know, singing about how much money they get, about beating up women and gay men, about glorifying fast cash, fast cars, and guns, don't tell me that doesn't have an influence. Give me a break. Of course, it has an influence. And so I think they should bear a great deal of responsibility. I would actually be in favour of some sort of legislation that meant a proportion of rappers' revenue went to helping victims of crime. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying everyone in that industry is a problem. There are some people who have a better influence, but I do think rappers and the R&B community has a lot to answer for in terms of glorifying this crap. And again, I'm not generalizing, I'm not saying it's everyone, but it just that pack mentality I just find disgusting. And it isn't just those that they kill; it's also those they intimidate, those who might be wounded, and not necessarily die. But a knife wound or a vicious attack in any way is enough to really scar someone mentally. It can lead to serious depression, mental anguish, anxiety. So I really, really take a hardline view on violent criminals. I don't think there should be any mercy for them. We can have the debate about tackling the root causes, and that debate has to be had. About broken homes, about a whole range of factors. That debate has to be had. But when crimes do occur, the response has to be hardline. It shouldn't be a case of, and I'm not accusing the Met of this, but it shouldn't be a case that someone's caught with a knife and then they're let back onto the streets. I take the view someone's caught with a knife, they go to jail. Sadiq Khan really needs to get zero tolerance on this because you're never going to have a situation where you can totally, absolutely get rid of violent crime. Unfortunately, that's almost impossible, especially in a city of almost 9 million people. So I accept that London is always going to have certain crimes. And obviously, if a crime is heinous, it will get attention. But I find this particular sort of crime, gang culture, to be particularly insidious, particularly heinous, because it's more than just criminal behavior. It's it's a worse sort of bullying in terms of that pack mentality. It's it's tribal because it's always about people being in the wrong estate and all the rest of it. It's cardly, and I want a situation where judges who actually have some backbone tell these criminals they're not big men. They're not gangsters. They're just criminal thugs, cards. And I think that's very important because there is a whole macho thing in this that they think, this pack mentality is somehow makes them big. It doesn't. Sure, it makes them dangerous because no matter how tough you are, you can't take on a gang. But individually, they're scum. They're absolute. They're not men at all. I think there can be some avenues going back to the root causes that can get, in particular, young men out of this life. I think boxing is very good. There's been many great fighters who, had they taken another path in life, would have ended up as scumbags like this. Many of Britain's greatest fighters could have ended up that way. They turned their life around. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who gets into boxing is going to end up, as famous as Anthony Joshua, but clearly it can be a vacuum. It's not realistic to say, oh, take up tennis or something. Boxing is a sport that uses aggression, albeit controlled aggression. So instead of wanting to stab someone for disrespecting them, being in a boxing gym, they unleash tension, they unleash anger. It can be a good thing. And I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm not saying it would work in every case. But that's why boxing clubs need funding. I think that that really would be a good avenue. But where crimes are committed, I believe in second chances in certain crimes where there's genuine remorse. But this gang culture where these people are devoid of any humanity, devoid of any sort of understanding of empathy, they're dangerous. You cannot give second chances for cases like this. You cannot, and I'm not suggesting that will be because this is a murder case. There will be custodial sentences. I don't know how long they will be. That will be down the line. But it isn't just about when this happens. It has to be prevented in the first place, which yeah comes back to the root causes, but it also comes to the right attitude. I have very very little patience for people who make excuses for this culture because in the end of the day, those law abiding members of society who are living in fear, frightened to leave their front door or their apartment door or their tower block because these criminal cards are terrorizing the area, that's utterly unacceptable. I find that absolutely unacceptable in a developed country in the 21st century that people are afraid to leave their own homes. And I know about that, I've been through it. Criminals need to be treated as seriously as their crime encompasses. They shouldn't be seen as troubled youths. They should be seen as criminal thugs. Anyway, I'll round this up. It's not a pleasant subject. It is depressing, but this is happening, and it's happening way too much. You remember that young Iranian guy, the asylum seeker who was beaten up by a pack of scumbags. So, just I will add a quick point about demographics. London clearly has a problem with black crime, black gangs. That's without question. Now, the Metropolitan Police has a unit, I believe it's called Trident, which is set up to deal with black on black crime. That's a big problem, but it isn't the only problem. There are white gangs, probably in the more outlying areas. There are South Asian gangs. I take the view gangs are universal scum. And I strongly believe that we cannot allow political correctness to shackle progress, to shackle something being done about this. So, if, for example, there is a particular problem with black gangs in a particular neighbourhood, it shouldn't be a case that legislators and the police cannot talk about that because some idiots will accuse them of racism. Where there's clear cut cases of racism, yeah, deal with that. But what fucks me right off, to be quite honest, I'm sorry for the language, but that's how I feel about it, is when the likes of Black Lives Matter are always attacking the police. They're always criticizing the police. They never, ever, ever criticize gang leaders. That makes me think they're utterly irresponsible. They're not really interested in improving the community. All they're interested in is peddling a victimhood narrative. And yet, the majority of young black men don't die from the police. They die from other black men. That's a fact. It's just a fact. So, if an organization like Black Lives Matter or equivalent organizations actually took some responsibility, I would start listening to them and thinking, okay, this is good. Maybe you can actually play a role here. You can work with the police. You can work with these communities. But all they're interested in doing is telling these communities the police are your enemy. So they're creating a situation of mistrust. Now, in this country, in my opinion, police forces have come a very long way from the 80s. There's far more diversity within police forces, and I believe they have greatly improved community relations. Yet we still see violent crime. So that indicates it isn't the only factor. Okay, I'll leave it there. If you live in London, let me know your thoughts. But there's a few things that cannot happen. Firstly, we cannot as a society tolerate this. We cannot make excuses for it. And we cannot inject political correctness when we're talking about lives. We're talking about lives here. Okay, thanks for watching and let me know your thoughts. Please excuse me. Please do feel free to subscribe if you're interested in my channel and feel free to share my videos. Thank you.